Welcome to Scene, where the art world meets the real world. Every 2 weeks, we sit down with emerging and established artists to offer a genuine glimpse into their lives and minds, all in an authentic and totally straightforward manner. I'm Carrie Scott, your host. And with 2 decades of experience as a curator and art historian, I firmly believe in the transformative power of art, if it's seen. Have you seen Kofi Perry's work? It's so dynamic. They're a vibrant exploration of cultural identity and social issues. And when we spoke, he really explained how he blends abstraction and realism in his work. Intricate paintings that challenge the way you think about race and history and power. And his art is this bold and thought-provoking journey through identity and social commentary and the blending of identities. Really such an open conversation with an artist who I've never had the privilege of meeting in person. And I'm so keen to hear what you all make of this exciting young artist's work. Kofi Perry, what a great surprise, honestly, to be able to talk to you, because I've really just discovered your work through the Ingram Prize and Joe. And I feel like there's so much more that I want to know. So I kind of would love it if you could start at the beginning, right? It looks like you were in Hong Kong, you were then in the States, you're now here in London. Can you give us a potted, who is Kofi? Where do you come from? How did you get here?
Of course, I'll do my best. So I guess to start off, my parents, my dad is American and my mom is Iranian, but she grew up in Lebanon. So that is already kind of a mix of things that I have to deal with when I'm born. And that birth happened in Lebanon. So I lived the first 8 years of my life there and then moved to the States and kind of became more American back in my dad's hometown. Near Philadelphia. And it was during that time that I think my interest in creativity really became very obvious to me. And so years down the line, when I went to live with my dad in China because he was teaching sociology there, I decided to try art school. And that was at Hong Kong Art School. And I was doing a major in ceramics, actually. And the course itself didn't suit me so well. And I think my life in Hong Kong was a bit crazy for my 18-year-old self back at the time. So I decided to switch everything up and go back to the US and kind of start from scratch. And I didn't really know what I would do, but I was still very much on a creative kind of wave, trying to do something that would, suit my creative itches rather than a 9 to 5. And it was there that my parents consulted with some artist friends, and they suggested I attend the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts in Philadelphia. So that's where I went to art school next, and it's also where I was kind of inducted into traditional Western painting and all the classicism related to that. So I got my start in drawing and painting back at PAFA. And then in 2020, a lot of crazy life things kind of happened. My mom left the US permanently and she decided to relocate to the UK. And I was kind of just visiting her in the middle of that really wild summer. And then I never really went back. My parents kind of just waved a magical wand and were like, Kofi, you're going to stay in the UK and transfer art schools. And I was... I kind of had to accept that life change. And it's worked out so far very well. I think being able to start my career in London has given me a lot more opportunities than I would have gotten just in Philadelphia. So that is the short version of all my different travels and how I've landed in the UK.
Has it been really different from school to school? I think that you said Hong Kong, and I was like,
God, I imagine their approach to art is really different from how, anyone is doing it in Philadelphia or Pennsylvania, for that matter. Like, did it feel jarring to you, those switches?
It's a good question. I want to say no, actually. I kind of got the impression from all three schools that I just came to understand this issue with contemporary art education, which is probably not so contemporary. It's probably been happening for hundreds of years, but there's like simultaneously this um, lack of education of the craft of whatever you're doing, be it ceramics or painting or drawing. And on the flip side, there's also a lack of like commercial art training and like how you should navigate the art world, how it even works, just the bare basics. So I think our students are kind of left in the middle, and we we aren't really guided through much traditional like making, and we're also not guided through how to just become a business arts person. So instead, we just write really good artist statements, and that's what we do really well at, and that's what schools train you to do very well. So in Hong Kong, I think I was doing that more than any of the actual like throwing on the wheel, which is what I really was interested in. And I kind of thought to myself, like, oh, this school has a problem. But turned out it wasn't just Hong Kong art school. It's actually just, I think, yeah, a worldwide thing happening. And so I felt the same kind of dilemma when I was at PAFA, even though I think between these three schools, they were the most actually craft minded. And then again, at City and Guilds of London, I was scrambling to get some training for myself and teach myself some of the basics about galleries and networking.
I think, though, that, like, I mean, you totally hit the nail on the head. In terms of, that was my experience almost 20 years ago now, right? Like, I went into grad school thinking I was going to be an academic. And I pretty soon was like, wait, this is really weird, though. Like, I'm going to be a contemporary art historian, which that in and of itself is bizarre. Or like, how could you be anyway? But I'm not allowed access to the MFAs, so we're all like busy making work. And so I was like, well, hang on, I'm going to start auditing their, like, I think it was called practical something. I'm going to audit that class because I want to know what they're telling them to do. And they weren't telling them to do anything particularly helpful in terms of like, what do you do when you get out of school? But it felt like at least then I'd have some sort of basic understanding of what artists were being taught so that I could help them. And then I was super confused. I had no idea that the same university I went to from Giant University, but they had a curatorial studies, like museum studies course. And that was way more practical. And that was about like, handling things and conservation. And I was like, well, hang on. As an art historian, don't I need to know all that stuff too? And I just was like, oh my God, someone needs to unlock all the keys, Yeah. But it's still the same. It's still the same. And I think it is kind of a travesty that so many artists leave university with BFAs and they have absolutely no idea how to like approach a gallery or even get into group shows, like talk to curators, invite curators over. There just doesn't seem to be that hands-on thing. Gosh, yeah. That was a waffle, but you obviously touched a nerve there because it really drives me crazy.
No, I'm totally with you. And it's like such a blatant issue. And we all talk about it. Every artist that I speak to talks about it. We all agree. So sometimes it makes me wonder, like, is this by design? Is there an intention behind this gatekeeping? And if so, like, who is it serving? The big questions.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those things. It's like near impossible to answer. And when you start thinking about it, you're like, oh my gosh, no, it's a big, giant conspiracy. But then you're like, most people that run this are a hot mess. So it's probably not.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
It's just disorganized. And tell me, so you mentioned ceramics, but you haven't talked about the fact that actually you're a painter. Like, you're a painter through and through and through.
Yes.
How did that switch happen?
Right. Well, to be completely honest, I think the best way to answer that is just that I've always been interested in a variety of mediums, and the way it all fits in my head, mediums actually don't matter as much as just like the method. I love analyzing and obsessing over the way I create something, be it hip hop beat, or when I was like 8, I used to make sarcophaguses, like ancient Egyptian inspired fish mummies. I would get my mom to buy me a fish, and I would just do that. And I guess when I was 16 in high school, I had the chance to apply this kind of attitude to ceramics because my high school had a ceramics class. And I loved that so much. It was like such a great oasis from like the high school BS that I was surrounded by, and I could kind of really flourish in that class and just make the things I wanted. And the teacher was great because he gave me space to do that. So when it was time for me to think about college and what I would be interested in doing, the answer for me was already nothing. Like I didn't want to pursue a degree. I didn't really want to do a regular career path by any means. So ceramics was the only thing that I knew I had done recently and I liked, and I could see myself doing it. So that's what got me started. And I only stopped the ceramics because the Pennsylvania Academy didn't have that on the table as an offer for a degree. Instead, they had drawing, painting, sculpting, and printmaking and illustration. So I actually chose drawing when I started at PAFA. I was getting a bachelor's degree in drawing, which I don't think is as common in other schools. So it was a very interesting start. And I think I liked the idea of drawing as a degree because I knew that it was drawing is like so fundamental. And if you can get that right, you're probably set for other things. So I pursued drawing for, I guess it was over 2 years. And I never really thought I would do anything else until during 2020 when my life was changing. I had moved to the UK. Then I started asking myself, like, what would my drawings look like in color? So I spent like kind of a year of toil trying to get to painting without actually wanting to paint. I just wanted to draw and make those drawings in color. So after about a year or so, I was finally accepting, no, now you're entering painting. You should start painting and use paint for its own merits and like do it. Don't just try to do it in a side way by converting drawings into paintings. So that's how I've arrived at this current practice of making large scale oil paintings of figures set in this fictional Afrofuturist world. And of course, it all does start with drawing, though. Each composition I make is well planned out to the nth degree before I ever actually commit to the canvas.
Do me a favor. You're going to hate me for this. Would you mind being a little bit louder when
Oh, yes,
you
yes,
answer
of
the
course.
next one?
I'm sorry.
Totally fine. You've obviously got this lovely, calm energy. Just want to make sure that the mics pick you up.
Yeah.
So, but the thing that then, as you were talking about all that, right? These images, your work flashes up in my mind, and in all of the work that I've seen, they're like these figures are kind of bursting at the edges of the composition, right? Like they feel contained and held, but equally that they're like, hang on a minute, like this is not my world, this is not my space. Can you talk about that kind of it's a tension, right? Can you?
Yes.
What's that about for you?
Yes. I think so. The very cropped compositions is how I would describe it. This is something that I love, and I love seeing in other contemporary art. It's actually one of these main qualities in contemporary art that I chase after. It's not much else that I'm really crazy about. But I first found it in artists like Gu Jingzi and plenty of others who make very cropped figurative paintings. And like it seems as if to some eyes, maybe your eyes, the figure or the head is like bursting and it's hard, it can't be contained within this rectangle. For me, the way I think about it is more that the rectangle is sort of, it's less that the figure is actually contained or like obstructed by these margins. It's more just that it fits really nicely, like a puzzle. I think other people have commented on this compositional thing I'm doing. They've also said it's as if there is some kind of tension between the canvas and the characters. And to me, it's actually harmony. To me, it's balanced. Now everything is finally set in the right place. It's touching the corners and the edges so perfectly. So and that's not to say, of course, that these interpretations that you're providing are okay. I accept them and I embrace them so much. But that's the way I'm thinking about it, at least.
I would agree that there's harmony, and in some ways it feels like a lens going close. It was something that definitely grabbed me when I initially saw them, and it did feel a bit like just almost that like these figures were like they're not part of a landscape. They're like kind of otherworldly, or like they exist somewhere else, that they become fictional because they're not placed in a space that you can understand, and that they're so close that you're like, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, just to riff on that, if I may, I would say that it's maybe related to friezes as compositions and as a compositional format. It's obviously something friezes have existed for thousands of years. It's a very ancient kind of way of presenting the human body. And I think inherent to friezes is usually a very flat space, something that doesn't seem real, maybe a bit surreal, or I don't know, not very tangible. And then the figure is so tightly cropped and so close to the field of view, and I think it allows for a lot of messages that you can add to this kind of composition. The figure is foregrounded, and the poses they become like the subject rather than the background. And historically, I think these friezes were used for like propaganda and maybe formal political purposes. So it's sort of what I'm trying to use.
In the little bit of research that I could do into your work, there's often mention of Afrofuturism. Why?
Yeah, it's a good question. Afrofuturism to me is something almost a bit sticky because it's this label that I've attached to my work that helps for like branding purposes. Maybe it like kind of clearly, very aptly describes what I'm doing in one word, but it's also like a very controversial word because it was created by a white intellectual about Black art, and many of the Afrofuturists, the first Afrofuturists, didn't necessarily use that term, and they don't really relate to it. So for me, I'm a bit in between because I recognize that it has baggage, the word Afrofuturism, but also it describes things so quickly and so, I mean, it describes things a bit well. So I guess what I'm doing is exploring how my art and my natural tastes fit that word, and I guess managing how that word affects me.
Do you think it's helpful in terms of like categorizing you? I mean, you started saying, right, your mom is from one place and your dad is from another place, and that identity, and you used the words you used, right? You said, and that birth happened when you're referring to where you were born, right? And I struggle with this a little bit because I was born in the UK, but I grew up in America, and then I came back here and everyone's like, we don't understand where you're from. Can you just speak normally? And I'm like, but I am. But I would say I was born here. And I just thought it was so curious that you said this birth happened. Do you think that sometimes you do struggle to be like, all right, listen, this is who I am. Here's the label you can use.
Yes. I think that's a great way of describing what I'm trying to do with that word. Because yeah, it can be hard to wrap everything up in just a couple sentences at a private view or something with somebody you just met. So I think using just one word that people recognize, and it happens to be very trendy also at the moment, it's useful. But who knows how it'll serve me for the rest of my career? I think it may not last. Who knows?
The other thing that was clear to me, again, kind of immediately looking at the work, is that the figures are really sculptural, right? You're not trying to do like a mimetic representation of a person. They feel imagined characters. Is that fair, or are they people that you know? Are they portraits of people you know?
No, so they are actually all imagined. You're correct. They're all from my imagination, and everything I'm doing is inventive in that sense. I don't reference models or like a landscape that I'm painting. But I think to substitute for those like models or life model in the studio, I reference a lot of just cultural archives, like Black cultural archives, album covers, and say like FBI wanted posters, Black Panther Party posters, or civil rights photography, or just the list goes on and on. And that kind of feeds my practice where a life model wouldn't. So yes, the figures become, they are all imagined and they're not real. And there's something a bit kind of uncanny about the way forms are represented, because they don't look entirely naturalistic. They don't look like human beings that you'd see, but they are very sculptural, as you say. And I think that sculptural quality comes from my interest in broad form, which is, I guess, this artistic concept that one of my favorite historical artists talked about a lot, Jean-Auguste Dominique Eng. He was a neoclassical painter. Ingres. Eng.
Oh, Eng, like Eng. Yep.
Eng. Yeah. Yes.
I was like, who?
So Eng, he wrote and spoke a lot about broad form and broadness and general, very simple, round, big forms, as opposed to ones that are broken down and complicated. And that was like his aesthetic preference, I guess. And it suited his, again, kind of propaganda type means with his neoclassicism. So something with my eyes just loves to see broad form and very simple anatomy. Something really satisfying to me about it. So I've kind of adopted that trait from him. And over the past couple of years, I've realized that the broad form and the frieze compositions and some other things I'm interested in, they all happen to be very ancient kind of artistic traits. They're not inherent to just Eurocentric art. I think they actually go back thousands of years to the ancient Greeks and the ancient Egyptians. And you couldn't even cross continents. You could talk about ancient Mayan art and Hindu temple art. So all of these different sources have kind of made me think like maybe this classicism that I've been struggling to reconcile with, that I learned at the Pennsylvania Academy and that we can see in the National Portrait Gallery here in London. Maybe this classicism is actually much older and more universal, and it's shared among different cultures. And I don't have to feel this stickiness about using it in my Afrofuturist art that is supposed to subvert the establishment.
But I think that's really cool. There's like this time travel that goes on. When you mentioned civil rights photography, I immediately thought of Larry Fink, and then it sort of started to make sense of the way that you're making those crops, because he's got all these, like from the March on Washington, he's got shots from there that, like, you know, you have these figures who are right in the foreground. I mean, right in the foreground, and then like little figures up on the side. And so there's a real, you just, when you said it, I was like, oh my God, you are bridging like classics with today. Almost like a DJ sampling sounds. I don't know.
I love it. Yes.
Tell me a little bit about the Ingram Prize. How's that been? Cool, great.
Yeah, it's been amazing. It was a crazy thing to happen. I guess last year I was applying to some open call exhibitions to get more eyes on my work. And I applied to the Ingram Prize, honestly not knowing much about it. And when you're like an emerging artist and you're young and not very rich and you have things to do, you just apply to stuff manically and you don't really keep track. So that was Ingram Prize was one of those for me. And then months later, I found out that I was accepted. So that was like a dopamine boost for sure. But then going to the prize and actually winning was very bizarre because it wasn't really in my mind that I could win. But it happened. And then I had to kind of like accept that. And it took a long time. And meanwhile, I was offered a solo exhibition as part of my prize, an institution in London or in Woking, which is just outside of London, called the Lightbox. And so I was suddenly like submerged in the making of these works for the solo exhibition, and still trying to wrap my head around the fact that I had even won the prize. But yeah, now the exhibition is currently on view, and I'm just extremely grateful and happy and feeling very blessed that I could have this opportunity, trying to milk it as much as I can.
And Kofi, what's next? Like, where can we see your work next? Or also, what do you want to have happen with the work? Like, what's the driving goal or the force?
Yes. Well, the next thing I'm going to be doing is 154 Art Fair in London. I'll be doing the solo booth at Dot Gallery, which will be in October.
Where is Dada based?
And then, so Dot Gallery doesn't have a brick and mortar space yet, but they're based in London and Lagos as well. So that is the next thing I'm working on, and maybe doing like another similar kind of presentation in spring 2025. But beyond these upcoming ones, I'm shooting for this space in my career where I can be known for what I do, the like classical craft kind of painting, and also known for my Afrofuturism or whatever label we want to use, and have become like maybe a household name in these worlds, but also. And then I think just getting to that household name status will require a lot of like high-end kind of gallery or institution shows. So that's kind of the target I'm shooting for. But I also don't necessarily want to stay around there for very long, or maybe I got to find my own alternative space because as is the case, just like, I don't know, my whole personality, I feel like I can't always fitting very neatly in the establishment. So I would love to get to that kind of arena and then find my own path, maybe start my own institution, physical institution, dedicated to the things I'm passionate about.
I mean, here for that. And at the risk of sounding incredibly patronizing, you are still very young. And you're already making a mark. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if you do get to carve out your own space. And like I said, right, it is, well, I didn't say this, but it's not often that I like see a work and I was like, I just immediately drawn to it and excited about it and said to Joe, I want to go down and see the show. And, so I think you're doing something amazing, and you just please keep doing it.
Thank you so much. It means a lot.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for doing this. I am determined to keep them under 30 minutes because I think people tune out. But can you just sign off with where people can find you online so that they can go check out your work?
Of course, on Instagram, Kofi Perry Art. That's KOFI. PERRY art. And then my website is just my name, kofiperry.com.
It's very Googleable. because there aren't very many of you.
Exactly.
Thank you, sir. It was so awesome to meet you.
Thank you. Likewise.
See you soon.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Scene Podcast. If you liked what you heard, I'd love it if you subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want to connect with us between episodes, follow us on Instagram at WatchSceneArt. I'm Carrie Scott, and I'll see you next time. Get it?